Hello and welcome back to the gorgeous Moray Coast, one of my favourite places in the whole of Scotland for photography and just for enjoying, for walking, for cycling, just being outdoors and embracing nature. I was actually here 2 nights ago, but about 2 miles in that direction in the hope of shooting a video. It's a very nice and unique coastline, but sadly the weather wasn't very great. Now of course, I could have stayed 2 nights ago. I could have got some interesting long exposures, I could have done some minimalist photography, 100% I could have done, but I wasn't really feeling it that night, to be honest. And I think it's quite nice when you are aware, when you, I don't know, haven't really got the inspiration for photography and actually sort of act on that and just enjoy going for a walk, which is what I did instead. I didn't do any photography, just went for a walk, enjoyed nature, enjoyed the wind, enjoyed everything that was going on. But I've come back again tonight because, as you may be able to see, it's a beautiful, beautiful night. A little bit too blue and cloudless for epic landscape photography, but what I'm hoping is that when the sun sets over the sea, we're going to get a gorgeous golden glow which is going to illuminate the coastline and a beautiful cove which I'm currently walking to. So let's go there now and I'll show you just how beautiful it is when I get there. So here we are at Cove Bay. This bay is beautiful. It's beautiful from up here, but it's equally as beautiful if you go down and explore all of its caves and caverns. Such an epic place to do photography. I have to admit though, strangely enough, even though this is a very short drive and also accessible easily by cycle from the village that I grew up in, I've only ever done photography here twice in my whole entire life. And I've been really looking forward to coming back here for years now. I don't know why I haven't done it until today. To do photography, to film a video and to just enjoy this stunning scene. You know, this is epic. Now I could have gone down to the cove itself, loads and loads of photography opportunities down there, but as it's the summer, we have got some people camping down there and you know, people just enjoying it down there, which is completely cool. And also where they're camping is going to be out of a shot if I was to take it from up here. I'm a lot more comfortable vlogging away from people, which is another reason why I've chosen to come up here. But my plan is, because tonight we have got pretty much clear skies and we're not going to have much interest at all in the sky because of that, what I am hoping is that we're going to get a really intense orange glow in the next 20 to 30 minutes, because it's only about 40 minutes until sunset, or until the sun is completely set. Just now it's gone behind a few clouds, but I'm hoping once it comes out of the gaps in the clouds we're going to get some lovely orange glow that is going to illuminate this stunning beach and stack that comes out into the sea. And because it's high tide, the water is right in at the beach as well, which means we've got a lot of water and the opportunity to do a nice long exposure shot with the long exposed water going into the cove itself. So tonight, in many ways, conditions are perfect for a shot that I've visualised here for many years. And we also have some really nice thin clouds above the cove as well, which, if they light up a nice colour, will give me some interest in this image. It's going to be a very basic image tonight, a case of setting the camera up, waiting for the golden light to come and hit this rock, doing a long exposure with a filter and hoping for the best. And then once sun has set, I've got another photography idea, which I'll talk you through in a minute. So you'll have just seen a second ago there me removing my camera strap. Now this is something that I never used to do, and I used to get a lot of comments from people telling me that I must remove my camera strap. And still sometimes now when I'm doing landscape photography I don't, especially if it's still in cam. But if we're doing long exposure photography it's pretty much essential, because having my camera strap on is causing it's causing like a sail, like a kite, which is allowing the wind to hit it, which has potentially caused some movement of the tripod and make your long exposure a little bit blurry. So if anyone was wondering why I just removed my strap, that is why. And if anybody was wondering why I had my strap on, it's because I've just been doing some photography work for a company which involved me walking around with my camera handheld. Because again, I know a lot of people don't put their camera straps on their camera at all, but depending what kind of photography you're doing, sometimes it does make it a little bit easier. So a little bit of a tip there, I'm sure many of you already know that, but if you're doing long exposures, take off your camera strap. It just allows a little bit more stability and stops you having a sail. I had actually forgotten how displeasing this composition is. Now what I mean by this is the view from up here is incredible. The Cove is beautiful, it's got a lot to offer, and when you've got golden light hitting it like we do tonight, which you only really get for a short period of time in the summer, it looks gorgeous against the orange stone of these rocks and cliffs. But the composition here, you can't really do much with it. There's no foreground interest. You can make it a bit more interesting by doing long exposure, which is what I'm trying to do. But because there is nothing in the bottom right corner of the photograph, it doesn't quite look right. It doesn't look as visually appealing as it does to the eye, especially if you're trying to get it within the normal dimensions of a photograph. So I'm going to show you the shot I've just taken now. But I have to say that I'm not very pleased with it, because there isn't that balance in the scene and there isn't that foreground interest, which is a real shame. But I wanted to come here tonight to see this location again, because it's probably been about 5 years since I last shot this. So it's a pleasure to come out tonight just to do it, because it's a beautiful spot, and to actually remind myself that it's actually a shot that, although it's beautiful to the eye, it doesn't quite work visually. So I've now come down the cliff to a bit just below where I was just shooting, and sadly a blanket of cloud has just appeared on the horizon, which is completely obscuring the sunset. So that orange glow that I was hoping for hasn't happened. I did get it very briefly for that photograph I just showed you, but I'm not going to get it again, which is a real shame. But what I have done is I've found a much more visually appealing photograph. Now this one won't really work as a long exposure because I've got a lot of grass in the foreground moving around, unless I wanted to do something really creative and have that movement in the grass, which I might actually do as a bit of an experiment. But I've got foreground interest, I've got a leading line, and I've still got the beautiful cove and caves in the background, and it's just far more visually appealing. And I sort of wanted to use this as a bit of a teaching exercise. I had a workshop last night on this coastline, and we were discussing, well, I was discussing with my client, or he was discussing with me, this example of how it does not matter at all what camera you own, what brand of camera you have, anything like that. It does not make you a good photographer. The best photographs come from the people who are prepared to look for a composition, or look for a slightly different composition. And what we were discussing last night is the idea, or the fact actually, sometimes just moving a few inches to the left, a few inches to the right, putting your camera down a few inches, up a few inches, whatever, can completely transform a composition. And actually spending a decent amount of time in a location and making these subtle changes, trying them out, and as well as doing these very subtle changes, walking around the location you're at and looking for a composition will allow you to create a much more visually appealing image and something more unique than if you just go to the obvious spot, plonk your tripod down and take a shot. So I kind of want to showcase with this image here that although the light has gone and I'm not going to get the orange glow that I wanted, this image is more visually appealing because despite not having the light, it's got interest, and compositionally it's much better. And all I had to do was walk 30 seconds down the hill to get here. It's just something to think about. So I hope you can see how compositionally that photograph worked so much better than the one I took earlier. But obviously the light in the earlier photograph was better than what it is now. Now obviously light in many ways is everything, especially in landscape photography, and it can definitely allow you to get those unique and unusual images. Now also last night during my workshop we stayed out for about half an hour after sunset. Got some really epic clouds. It was actually a really good night. But one thing I did was I took a photograph where we were doing the workshop about an hour before sunset, and I mean it was alright, it wasn't bad, compositionally it wasn't bad, but waiting until after sunset and taking the photograph again when you have that blue tones in the sky and also on the land actually made the photograph come to life, like really come to life. So tonight I'm going to stay out and do the same thing again because we haven't got a nice glowing orange sunset. What I'm hoping is, now that the sun has literally just gone properly behind the horizon, what I'm hoping now is that in the next 10-15 minutes we'll get that nice blue tones and hues around me, and hopefully it will bring this photograph to life and I'll be able to sort of salvage something from this evening which has interesting colours and light and an interesting composition. So I'm just going to sit here and wait for that time to come and enjoy this cracking view. Saying when I was up there that I have another photograph idea for tonight, and what it was there's these rocks down here that have got really interesting shapes and patterns on them, and I was hoping that I may be able to get onto them to use them as interesting foregrounds against the dark sky. So I'm considering doing that, but if I'm going to wait for this bluey tones and colours then I'm not really going to be able to do both of them. But down there's spots, and also down at the Cove where there's some really interesting rocks, really interesting shapes. And years ago, actually, when I first got into photography, I remember watching or seeing a photographer from this area. I don't think he lives here anymore actually, but he used to, and he had some cracking shots of water coming in and retreating out through these shapes in the rocks. But that would have been taken when there was a bit of a swell and some waves, and tonight is pretty calm, and there's not any water coming up and receding off of these rocks, so it's not going to make the image that I was sort of hoping to get or have been dreaming of taking for all these years. But just in case any of you were wondering what image I was visualising at the start of the video earlier on, it was photographing these rocks but being on them, using the shapes as foreground interest, leading lines with the sky behind it. But I'm not so sure that I'm going to have the time to do that tonight now, especially if I'm shooting this here. I'm waiting for that light. But it just gives me an excuse to come back, and I of course will be back because this is one of my favourite coastlines, and I hope you can see why. It's just stunning. that's the end of another vlog. Tonight's video, it's been a bit all over the place. It wasn't planned at all. I literally finished another job that I'm doing just now at 10 to 9. I thought there's exactly an hour till sunset. I'll drive 10 minutes down the road to the coast and try and get some shots. And although the weather didn't do, or the conditions weren't quite as I had envisaged, what I do hope, and this video was very rushed, what I do hope is that I've taught you something tonight. Because when the light wasn't kicking off and wasn't happening, I kind of thought about what could I teach you, and I hope what I showed you in those photographs, even though they're not the best, I just hope that you've learned something from them. Learned a bit about how sometimes the shot you want isn't always the one that's going to work out, and how composition is incredibly important. So I hope you learned something, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always I want to say a huge thank you for watching. I'm actually in the middle of some really big jobs just now, and you know, since lockdown's eased and we've been allowed out and about again and a lot of businesses are reopening, I've been hit by quite a few jobs, so which is great. It's fantastic actually, I'm over the moon, but it does mean that the next few weeks I'm struggling to find the time to do YouTube videos, but I will still be doing them. I'm just gonna have to fit them in around other jobs like I've done tonight, so they might be a bit more rushed and a little bit less planned, but I hope you'll still enjoy them, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you all again next time.